In this video, I'm going to show you how to solve quadratic equations by factoring, using greatest common factor, difference of two perfect squares, and trinomial. The first step in solving quadratic equations by factoring is set each equation equal to 0. Then you're going to factor the equation completely, split the factors, then set each factor equal to 0, and finally solve for the variable using inverse operations. The first way you're going to want to try to solve quadratic equations is by finding the greatest common factor. And in this first example, the greatest common factor is 4x, open the parentheses, and you're going to have x minus 7, close them, and then equals 0. Then you're going to want to split the factor, and it's going to say 4x equals 0, and x minus 7 equals 0. Then you're going to use inverse operations to solve for the variable, and you're going to have x equals 0, and then on this side you're going to add 7, and that's going to cancel out, and add 7 again, and then you're going to have x is equals to positive 7, and these are going to be your two answers for the value of x. Now on this side you're going to do the same thing. The equation is already set equal to 0 as it was in the first one, so next you're going to factor it completely, and it's going to be 6x, and then in parentheses x plus 6, close the parentheses, equal to 0. Next you're going to split the factor, and you're going to have 6x equals 0, and you're going to have x plus 6 equals 0. Now you're going to use inverse operations and divide by 6, that's going to cancel out. You're going to divide by 6 on this side, and you're going to have x equals 0, and then you're going to subtract by 6 on this side, and that's going to cancel, and subtract again, and you're going to have x is equal to negative 6 also. These are again your two values for x. So that is how you solve quadratic equations by finding the greatest common factor. Okay, the next way you're going to want to try to find a way to solve quadratic equations is by using difference of two perfect squares. So the first problem is you're going to have x plus 6 and x minus 6 equals 0. Then you're going to split the factors. You're going to have x plus 6 equals 0 and x minus 6 equals 0. As you could see, the problem was already set equal to 0 in the first place. Then we factored it completely, and now we're going to solve for the variable. So you're going to subtract 6 here, and that's going to cancel, and then you're going to have x equals negative 6 on one side, and then on the other side you're going to have plus 6, and that's going to cancel, and you're going to add 6 to 0, and you're going to have x equals 6. And here are your two values for x. On the other side, you're going to factor it again, and you're going to have x plus 25 in parentheses, and x minus 25 on this side in parentheses equals 0. Now you're going to split the factors, and you're going to have x plus 25 equals 0, and x minus 25 equals 0. Now you're going to use inverse operations and subtract by 25, and that's going to cancel. And then you're going to subtract over here, and you're going to have x equals negative 25 for your first value of x. And then you're going to have plus 25 over here, and that's going to cancel. And then you're going to add 25 again over here, and your value for x is going to be 25. So that is two examples showing you how to solve quadratic equations using dots. The last way I'm going to show you how to solve quadratic equations is by using trinomial factoring. So what's going to happen first is you're going to have to set the equation equal to 0, but that's already done for us in the first one. So your factors are going to be x plus 1 and x minus 4 in parentheses equals 0. Then you're going to split, and you're going to have x minus 4 equals 0 and x plus 1 equals 0. So now you're going to solve for the variable using inverse operations. So we're going to subtract by 1, and that's going to cancel. I'm going to subtract by 1 on the other side, and you're going to have x is equal to negative 1 as your first value for x. And on this side, you're going to add 4, and that's going to cancel. And you're going to add 4 over here, and it's going to have x is equal to positive 4 as your other value for x. In this second example, it's again set equal to 0 already for us. So we're just going to go ahead and factor it. So the first factor is going to be x plus 5 in parentheses, and the second one is x minus 3 in parentheses equals 0. Now you're going to split the factors, and you're going to have x minus 3 equals 0, and x plus 5 equals 0. So now you're going to use inverse operations and subtract by 5, which is going to cancel that out, and subtract 5 over here, and you're going to have x is equal to negative 5 as your value for x, and over here you're going to add 3 as your inverse, and that's going to cancel, and you're going to add 3 over here again, and it's going to be x is equal to positive 3 for your final value for x. I hope this video helped you figure out how to solve quadratic equations using trinomial factoring, dots, and greatest common factor.